your responses. So please go ahead and share your names with us. That would be great to know. Okay, so I can see a few responses. Okay, Akshay Narayan, Arul Prasad KG, do you get access of recording? Yes, you guys will get an access to the recording. We will be sharing that within 24 to 48 hours. So you will be receiving that from our end. And I hope that answers your query. Uh, yes, and I'm also sharing my screen right now, and I hope it's visible to all of you. Okay. All right. So yes, please go ahead and introduce yourselves. So Nivedita Akbar from Chennai, Marvin, Nikhil, procurement manager from Gujarat, Umaira from Nigeria, Sanjeev from Chennai. Hi everyone, welcome to the session. Irfan from Bangalore, David from Gujarat. He's a senior project manager. Devendra from Delhi. Okay, so we have a lot of responses. Thank you all for your wonderful introductions. And we have a lot of people from Nepal, Chennai, Texas. So a lot of a mixed audience from all around the world. Thank you all for joining us. And it's almost time. So I'll quickly start with today's session. We won't be wasting much time. And I can assure you that this is going to be a wonderful and insightful session. And I'm Shweta, and I'll be hosting your session for the day. And I'll introduce Bryan in a bit once I tell you about today's agenda. So today's agenda is very simple. So we're going to start with understanding the PMP eligibility and the prerequisites. Then we're going to talk about the exam format, how it's structured, and how the scoring actually works. We're also going to cover some common mistakes people make while preparing, and then share a 90-day study roadmap to help you plan your preparation effectively. And finally, we're going to look at how SimplyLearn's program can help you in this journey for clearing your PMP exam. And before we dive in, I'll just quickly take you through a few ground rules for today's webinar. If you have any questions, please ensure that you post them in the Q&A box. And the reason is that when you ask us questions in the chat, it's highly likely that we miss out on these questions or messages. So please ensure that you post them in the Q&A box. And apart from that, you have to use the chat box effectively. So make sure that the conversations are relevant to today's webinar, and please refrain from sharing any external links as well. And a main question that we receive is regarding the certificate of participation and the recording. So we will be sharing a form towards the end of the webinar, and you can just fill it up with your full name and you'll receive your certificate, the recording, and also today's slide deck, if that's something that you're concerned about. So with that also brings me to the introduction about SimplyLearn. This is a SimplyLearn webinar. So I just quickly want to know if all of you have attended a few webinars with us, or is this the first time? It would be great to know in the chat if you can let me know. Okay, so I can see a few yeses. So there are members who have attended other webinars and also a few first timers. So firstly, for anyone who's joined us earlier and is joining us again, thank you and welcome once again to our webinar. And for all the newcomers, I'll quickly tell you about SimplyLearn, as others might already know. So at SimplyLearn, we have supported over 8 million learners across 150 plus countries, and we help professionals build future-ready skills in partnership with more than 50 plus global universities and also industry partners. On the screen, you can actually see some of our university partners and industry partners, and one among them is also PMI, who offer the project management professional certification. And there are a few credentials that you can see on the screen. So we are rated 4.8 out of 5 by most of our learners, which also talks about our learning experience. A lot of our learners have reported a 50% salary hike on completion of courses with us, and we have a graduation rate of 85% as well. So these are some points that we wanted to highlight and some things that we're really proud of. So that I hope that gives you a quick understanding and an idea about SimplyLearn. All right. So we are going to go ahead and have a wonderful session. And before that, I think coming to one of the most exciting parts, the part that I really enjoy, is introducing the speaker for today's session. And I'm very happy to introduce Bryan Campbell to do this webinar. So Bryan is an experienced Agile and program and project manager, and he is someone who really knows how to blend Agile and traditional project management techniques in a practical and business-focused way as well. He's also a certified PMI trainer and holds multiple credentials, like you can see on the screen, like PgMP, PMP, PMI ACP. So he's not just teaching project management, he has worked across industries, and he's got to bring all of that experience together in today's webinar. And the key highlights is also that Bryan is one of our mentors, and it's honestly a wonderful learning experience with him. I've felt that throughout all of our webinars. So I would like to take this moment to welcome him, and I think it would be better if you introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. Well, thanks so much for this. It's great to be part of this session today and a very generous introduction. Thank you for that. A few of the things just to highlight. I've been working in the project management training domain here for close to 15 years. So I have a lot of experience helping people interested in getting their project management certification and other types of PMI certifications. And in fact, I'm a contributor to the PMBOK. So as you're getting ready to take that exam, you'll certainly see some of the areas that I've contributed to. And I've also written a lot of exam questions for the PMI. So pretty familiar with how they approach their certification practices. And I think we can get a little under the covers in today's session. So if you got questions, this is a good time to ask them. And yeah, I'm ready to go if you are.
Awesome. That was a wonderful introduction, and I'm sure everyone's here waiting to hear more from your end. So, with that, I think I will start with one of the most commonly asked questions and some that we receive from beginners who are interested in project management. So, first question is, who can actually apply? What is the eligibility criteria to write the PMP exam? So, could you please help us understand that better?
Yeah, that's a great question. And what does make this particular certification a bit different from many others is that there are a fair number of prerequisites that you have to satisfy. So before you can even take the exam, you've got to go through this process of applying. There's an application you're going to complete. And before you complete the application, you have to have each one of these different types of criteria satisfied. So there are a couple paths. In fact, there's a new path that was recently introduced, which is a little bit interesting. But if you have a degree, and most people often do start with a degree, you are going to have that degree, demonstrate that you've got a successful, bachelor's degree or some kind of equivalent. And then in addition, you need 36 months experience working as part of a project. They use the term leading projects, but that can be in different contexts. So you could be perhaps a business analyst who has been working on a number of projects, and you can demonstrate that, hey, I was helping lead those elements of the project, capturing requirements, refining those, working with development teams and testing functionality. So that center path is for a lot of people, a very common one that they follow. It does require that bachelor's degree. You see the 36 months of experience, and then all of them are going to have the same training requirements. That's 35 contact hours, and we use the term contact basically means you're working with some kind of instructor-led training session. So we'll dig into that a little bit further in the session. Now, the other two paths, if you don't have a 4-year degree, which is perfectly fine, it just means you're going to have to demonstrate more experience. So now instead of 35 or 36 months, you've got 60 months of experience you have to demonstrate in addition to the standard training. And then the new path that was introduced is that you might have gotten your bachelor's or some kind of postgraduate degree from what's called a GAC accredited path. That's basically a institution that the PMI has worked with and have identified as sort of focusing on a lot of project management topics. And as a consequence, you don't need as much experience. And notice there's only 2 years or 24 months of experience required if you have those GAC accredited institutions that you've gotten your degree from. And if you're curious if your institution has that backing, that GAC accreditation, there is a little area that you can search for on the PMI site. I'll pop it into the chat when I get a second here. But if you do have that path, you only need the 24 months. So the important thing is you need some foundational education, at a minimum, a high school diploma with 60 months of experience or a 4-year degree with 36 months. And then you'll need the training, that 35 contact hours of training before you can even apply for the exam and then take the exam.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. I think that gave everyone a great clarity on what are the requirements mandatory to write the exam, and that's one of the common queries that we receive. So also because this webinar is focusing on the 90-day plan to clear the exam, I think it's important for us to understand the exam structure as well. And that is one major question a lot of our audience has. What does the actual PMP exam look like? And what is the exam structure, the kind of format that one can expect, and the challenges learners must look forward to, and maybe some tips on that. That would be really good to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're exactly right. Immediately after answering the question of who's eligible, the next question is, well, what's the exam look like?
Yeah.
And it is important to kind of get yourself grounded here because this is going to be a challenging exam. You know, you do need to prepare, just as you said, you need to kind of carve out 90 days, have a approach that you can use to pass this exam because it is quite demanding. And what makes it particularly demanding is its length. It is close to 4 hours in duration. For many of us, it's probably been a while since we've sat through an exam of that length. And it's sort of like, running a 5K or 10K race. You got to kind of prepare a little bit, get your body ready for taking on that challenge. So the first thing is just be aware it is a pretty long exam. The other part of this is there are a variety of different types of questions. Now, when I took this originally, a long time ago now, back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, those days, there were 180 questions, but they're all multiple choice. But notice now that in addition to multiple choice, there are a whole bunch of other types of questions you can be asked, multiple response. So you can have 2 or 3 correct answers. So you're going to have to really give some thought to reading the question, looking carefully at the answers, responding to the type of question that's being asked. There could be some drag and drop sequencing. There could be like a graph, and it could say, show on the graph where there's sort of an increase in resource demand or utilization. You'll have to be skilled at kind of identifying, reading graphs, interpreting them. There could be some fill in the blank questions that you have to answer. So there's going to be a variety of types of questions you're going to have to be ready to respond to. Although I will say the vast majority will be multiple choice. But outside of that, it's really just getting yourself mentally prepared to take that 4-hour exam. There is 180 questions, and you notice like there's 230 minutes. You get the 2 10-minute breaks. So basically, you're kind of answering a question every minute and a half. So you've got to kind of really pace yourself a little bit and kind of practice. And we're going to talk more about that as we progress.
Right. And that was a great explanation. So we already discussed the question types, and you mentioned multiple choice. We will have a lot of multiple choice questions, and that also brings me to the next question that I have. That the exam content is mainly distributed across 3 domains, if I'm right. So that's people,
Mhm.
process, and business environment. So what are the percentages for these domains, and which one of these should one focus on, or should they equally concentrate on all of these aspects? So what's your take on that?
Yeah, another really great question. So to kind of help with this complex topic and to give us a little feel for what we're dealing with. So remember I mentioned that PMBOK, the Project Management Body of Knowledge, it's abbreviated as PMBOK. So that body of knowledge in the 6th edition was 1,000 pages long. It was basically like a phone book, if you remember those days. It's like kind of almost an encyclopedia of information. So that's a lot to absorb and process. And even though the newer editions, the 7th edition, the upcoming 8th edition, they're smaller. They're not 1,000 pages anymore. They have all that other content is now on the projectmanagement.com site. So the expectation is you're going to have to go explore, learn topics, dig into their website, find more information. As a result, that's a lot to absorb, right? That's a lot of information. So they've structured it so it's a bit easier to kind of have these focus areas. So you're exactly right. There's three focus areas. The first is process. Okay, so this is just how do we deliver and execute a project? What are the steps that we're going to follow? What's the inputs? What are the outputs? What are the tools and techniques we're going to use? Second part is people. How do we engage the team? How do we kind of help them understand what outcomes we're trying to achieve? How do we deal with any disputes or conflict? How do we communicate effectively to the team, to our stakeholders, to our sponsors? Because people are such an important part of our ability to deliver these projects. And then the business environment. And the business environment is all about understanding what are the goals of the project? Why are we even doing this? What does success look like? How would we demonstrate that success? Now, each of these areas have a different amount of emphasis. As you can see, the process space is about 50% of the exam. So that means of those 230 questions or 180 questions, sorry, half of them, about 90, are going to be oriented around process and what you do as a project manager. 42% is going to be around engaging with people, and 8% on this business environment area. And the reason for that is you might have noticed in my certifications, I have a PMP and a PgMP. PgMP is a program management certification. In the program management certification, this all kind of gets reversed. You have a lot more emphasis on business environment where you're really trying to understand outcomes and value and what's the reason we're doing this work. But at the project level, it's really emphasizing process and people. So those are the areas you're going to spend most of your time on when you're going through the PMBOK and getting ready for the exam.
Right. I think that provides a lot of clarity. And related to that, I saw a question, so I'm going to pass it on to you because I think it's kind of relevant.
Hmm.
Because you mentioned the previous edition of PMBOK 6, 7, and there's someone who's asked about the revision in the 7th edition, and she wanted to know if it was actually getting revised and if there are any changes that are going to come up in the upcoming exams.
Yes, so we are at that time of the year that this question emerges. So the PMI basically refreshes that PMBOK every 3 to 4 years, okay? Because they're kind of plugged into what's going into the industry and new trends. It might not surprise you to hear AI has suddenly become very, very popular since the 7th edition was released. So expect to see some updates to the content with some of these new ideas that are emerging. However, the PMI is also aware that many people have already started to prepare to take the certification exam and wouldn't be terribly fair to them to say, oh, guess what? We changed all the information. Now you got to relearn it all. So generally speaking, you have about a 1 year period from when that new release comes out. And that new release just came out last week. So that tells us we've got about a year. So the exam's not going to change for about a year. But they will start weaving in some new questions probably this time next year. So if you are already thinking about making the move to get your certification, maybe you've already started it. I think some people said they've already taken some of their training, etc. You're perfectly fine, but you want to have a game plan on how do you take that exam probably in the next 90 days because it will change. And if you're at a point right now where you're saying, oh, I'm not really so sure, I've got a lot of other things going on, it's such a busy time of the year, you know what? You might really want to give some thought to starting your training cycle starting early part of next year and use that to kind of get ready to take the exam. But you will have a point and they will communicate this. I'm going to say it's going to be November, could be a bit earlier, October, where they're going to say, okay, this point, the exam is going to focus on the new edition of the PMBOK. So you're still okay right now, but it's coming soon.
And I hope that kind of provides clarity for that question. And I think a lot of people had that same query. So now that we already discussed the domains that one should focus on for the PMP exam, another important question is related to the scoring of the exam. And that's a major part of it. We've also heard that there are some questions which are not actually scored. I'm not sure of that, but I've heard that. So, could you help us understand how one can ensure a good score at the exam, the scores that they should target for mock exams as well before giving their PMP exam?
Yes, yeah, that's just another great question. The PMI, modestly unusual compared to other certifications, they do not share a specific pass threshold. So they don't tell you need 80% or 65% or whatever it might be. Other certifications do. You take the ITIL certification, you have to get 65%. You take the Scaled Agile Framework exam, you have to get 80%. But this one, they just sort of leave it a little open. And that's partly because they tend to score these on a bit of a curve. So they kind of look at how people are performing, because sometimes the questions that are being asked could be more challenging than they've asked in the past. And they discover that, so they kind of give them a little bit of flexibility here. So what you will see is what we see on the screen here. You're going to get a score that is going to tell you or you're either above target, on target, or below target for each one of those domains we just looked at. And it's not quite as simple as like it says there, a simple pass fail percentage. It's going to not tell you 67.3%. It's just going to tell you if you're above, on target, or below target. And that's going to give you some information to kind of work with on what you might need to focus on if you have to retake the exam. They blend all these results to kind of come up with your final score. It can feel, I know when I took it, again, this is a long time ago, but you get your feedback immediate. So when you submit your exam, it tells you, boom, whether you passed or failed. And we'll talk a little bit about if you are in a scenario where you haven't been successful, what happens next. But generally speaking, you're just going to get this information back on whether you were above, on target, or below target. And and we'll talk again a little bit more in depth about this, but one of the most important things you can include in your preparation is taking practice exams. So you get a much better understanding of where your strengths, where some of your weaknesses are, so you can focus on those areas that need attention.
Yes, and that's great advice, I feel, when it comes to mock exams before PMP, and also feedbacks. I feel feedbacks on those mocks could also be really helpful while actually giving the exam. So now that we know the kind of questions that we have, the scores for the exam, the next probable question is naturally what happens after that? Like, how long is the PMP certification valid, and what does someone need to maintain it? Because PDUs are a part of PMP, and they require it to maintain the certification. So could you please help us understand that better?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a question that has come up quite frequently too. So again, some unique characteristics about this particular certification. Once you earn it, you have to maintain it. There's other certifications where, I've got my Lean Six Sigma, I got my, green belt, and that's fine. I'll have it for the rest of my life. And similar to some other certifications you can get out there. This one's a bit different this way. And the reason for that is because the PMI recognizes project management is continually evolving. So they want to make sure any of their certificate holders are continuing to invest into learning about project management and honing their skills. So once you get that certification, it is going to be valid for 3 years. Okay, so you've got for 3 years, you got your PMP, hooray. But now you got to get some thought to how to maintain it. And just as you said, there's this term called a PDU. Okay, that's a professional development unit. And you earn PDUs in different ways. And in fact, the PMI wants you to earn different types of PDUs. Some of it is through education, where you're going to continue to learn new skills. Some AI techniques are emerging, or you want to learn more about agile practices around project management, or it could be volunteering. And that could be, in fact, volunteering with the PMI itself. Each PMI chapter has a lot of activities going on through sort of monthly meetups to conferences that they hold, and you can be involved in that. You can even contribute to, some of the thought leadership if you got a real passion for some of this. So there's lots of ways to give back to the community. And then your professional activities. And that just means working as a project manager. Just by working as a project manager, you're going to get a number of PDUs. So you have 3 years to earn these 60 PDUs. And by the way, attending this very seminar is going to give you one PDU. So this is an easy way to kind of get these PDUs. Just look for webinars that are covering project management related topics, and you can take them. You can also earn some of these PDUs by going back to your work environment and having a little lunch and learn. You could have a lunch and learn on saying, hey, I attended the session on how to pass this exam in 90 days. I want to share that with the broader group that I work with. Boom, you just got yourself another PDU. So there's lots of different ways to earn these PDUs. They're not, overwhelmingly challenging for most people. The one that's often quite attractive is to continue to take some training. So you can get a lot of PDUs just like taking a training course, whatever it might be. So once you've got all those PDUs earned over that 3-year period, you renew your certification. They actually have a whole little website where you can submit your PDU requests, and they do get reviewed and then approved. And then you pay that your renewal fee, which generally isn't overwhelmingly expensive. It's going to depend where you are in the world, but I think here in the U.S. it runs about $150 a year. So and it covers the next 3 years, and then boom. Now, what you don't want to do, you don't want to let your renewal slip and then have to retake the exam, because that would not be fun. It's a little bit expensive too. So much easier just to maintain your PDUs, renew your certificate. And even if for a variety of reasons, maybe you pivoted a little bit away from the project management domain for a period, you're on special initiative, you move to a different type of work environment, I would still encourage you to maintain it, because it's much harder to re-earn it than it is to maintain it.
Thanks for that great explanation. And I think that gave us a lot of clarity on the number of PDUs required and how one can maintain it. Those were some great tips. And that also, so now we already spoke about how the validity and the renewal requirements. But one common concern that a lot of our participants have, and that's something that we received, is that what if they don't pass in their very first attempt? Is it possible to give multiple attempts a year? And what is the cap on that? So is there like a structure on the retake policy? Could you walk us through what happens if someone doesn't clear it on their very first attempt?
Yeah. So first off, if you happen to be a situation where you're not successful in first attempt, don't be disappointed. Don't feel kind of underwhelmed and sad. Very common. This is a very demanding exam. It's many people have to retake it. And in fact, there's a whole mechanism available to help you with that. So if you don't pass it, you are allowed to take retake the exam. You have up to 3 times within that first year eligibility, because you're going to fill out the application form, and once that gets approved, you have 1 year to take the certification exam. You can retake it up to 3 times. Now they have a few things they want you to kind of be aware of. I try to think. They used to have. Oh yeah, in fact, there it is. You have to wait 14 days before you retake it. Okay, so the whole idea is there, and the reason is like, hey, you weren't successful. Give your chance. Kind of collect yourself. Focus on areas that might need some attention. Strengthen those areas that might have been a little weaker than they needed to be. And then after the 14 days, you can retake it. Now, if you get to the point where you've taken it unsuccessfully 3 times, and for the record, I've not come across that. I'm not saying it can't happen, but that would be a little bit unusual. Then they're going to say, look, you need to pause, wait a full year, then you're going to have to reapply and start the cycle again. So let's avoid that. Now, one of the things, and we're going to talk a bit more about this is where finding the right training provider becomes really important. And we're going to, learn a little bit more about what SimplyLearn has to offer. But one of the things that is very important is you want to work with a training provider that really understands how important it is to be successful with taking this exam. They give you the training, they give you the tools, they give you the prep to kind of make that first attempt, very successful. And if not, they're there to help you get over the line and be successful in your next attempt. So we'll learn a little bit more about that. But yes, it's not uncommon. People will not be successful on their first attempt. Don't get discouraged. You can take it again in 2 weeks. And then, if that does happen, it's okay to reach out to people. I mean, lots of times as an instructor, all people reach out to me saying, what can I do to get, prepared and ready for this? Or I didn't do it. I feel so sad. It's like, okay, well, let's sit down. Let's figure this out together. Let's help you get across the finish line in the next attempt.
It's actually good to know that even if someone doesn't pass in the very first attempt, PMP actually gives options to try it again in the same year. So that's
Mhm.
a good advantage that you have. And of course, the best case scenario is clearing the exam in one shot. And a lot of the time, it comes down to avoiding. I think that also comes like avoiding a lot of mistakes, common mistakes that one makes during the exam. So as you're also a mentor with us, and you've helped a lot of learners clear this exam in their very first attempt. Brian, could you take us through some of the most common mistakes that you have seen, and how one can avoid them in while taking the exam?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a great list here. Maybe we'll just quickly go through this together and add some more ideas as we get through it. The first is, yeah, this whole idea of memorizing without understanding. Many times I've seen folks in particular, they'll really focus on, okay, I'm going to memorize all 47 of these project management processes without fully understanding what those processes are, why they're important, and how do they kind of relate to the other processes. Because each one of these processes are often producing outputs that are consumed by a different process or other processes, multiple processes. So making sure you understand sort of the reason behind that, like why are we doing this, and what's the purpose and what's the intent becomes really important because many of the questions are going to draw upon real world examples. They're going to say, hey, you're managing a project and the project has, I don't know, 20 people on it, and you've run into this situation. What is one of the project management processes that would help? So you're going to have to take your knowledge and apply it to a real world situation. Um, Outdated materials. And we always have to be a little careful with that. We just learned that, the PMI certification is changing. And often when it changes, they will make some adjustments to some terms and some references. So you want to really be kind of familiar with the latest language. And if you're using something that's a bit outdated, that can sometimes have a real impact on your ability to kind of successfully answer some of the questions. So again, your training provider is really important here. You want a credible training provider that is investing in updating their own mock exam content so it's reflective of what the current exam material looks like. Um, if you don't have some kind of schedule you're working with to pass the exam, this is fundamental project management 101 here, right? You should identify a date you want to take that exam and then work backwards to figure out how do you get ready to take that exam. So if you don't have that idea in your mind, you're going to have a really hard time preparing yourself to pass that exam because you always find a reason to kind of push it off. And then there is this risk too. There's a lot of information. You just took the course, you've been reading all this. If you put too much time between when you take the exam, when you've done that prep, you're just going to forget some of that information. Don't lose sight of the fact that while project management often emphasizes more traditional project management practices, I think I noticed a few folks in the comment section saying they work in the construction industry. Yeah, much of what you're learning in this project management space fits very well into those types of domains. Okay, where you've got very clear set of requirements, you build some architecture and design, and then you build the building structure you've scoped out, you validate it's working as expected, and it's ready for use. But there's this whole new sort of thought approach around Agile. And Agile puts a lot of emphasis on bringing people together, finding ways to collaborate, interact. So you want to have both of those experiences, or at least a familiarity with both traditional project management and Agile and how to blend those together effectively. There is a separate practice guide for just Agile project management that you'll be expected to be familiar with. The good news is, most of the time, I teach this course quite a bit. Most people say, "Oh, this is really sensible. It's very common sense oriented." So you won't feel it, I think, overwhelming or complex, but don't lose sight of the fact that those Agile questions are 100% going to come up. If you skip your full-length mock exam, you are doing yourself a disservice. As I mentioned, this is a challenging exam. It's a long exam. For many of us, it's been a long time since we've taking exams of this length. So make sure you sit down and you do it end to end. Time yourself. Put a little timer up, 4 hours. Now, again, your training provider, SimplyLearn is a good example, has a very robust emulation of what this exam looks like. It's going to track, when you start, how many questions you answered, if you want to flag a question to come back to, give you feedback on your results. That's what's going to strengthen your skills to take this exam. So do not skip your full-length exams. In fact, I would suggest you take 4 full-length exams end to end. Now remember, these are close to 4 hours each, so you got to bake some time in to get that done. But that will really kind of get you ready to take the exam. And then again, I think I mentioned about the fact that there's a lot of situational questions, scenarios that are going to be covered in the exam. So taking that knowledge that you've gained about processes and tools and techniques and applying it to these real world settings is going to be important. And what I might encourage you to consider, it's always good to buddy up, partner up. If you've got someone else in your organization interested in taking the exam, say, hey, let's do this together, and we can bounce ideas off one another. We can create little study groups. We can hold each other accountable. So look for those opportunities. If you don't happen to work in an environment where other people are interested in getting your PMP, turn to some of the forums. The projectmanagement.com site has a lot of forums. Lots of other people are trying to do the same thing. Say, hey, let's connect. And guess what? You might broaden your network and meet a really interesting person. So that's a good thing as well. So hopefully that covers a few ideas there on some of the common challenges that come around preparing for the PMP.
Thank you, Brian. That was really insightful. And I think you covered almost all the points. And everything that's mentioned on the screen are some of the mistakes that one could easily fall into, especially while you're studying on your own, or also while you are studying while you're working, right? You do not get the time, the structured feedback, and also the kind of mock exams that we offer. So now that we know what not to do, the natural question next is what's the right way to prepare for this exam? And like we mentioned, we are going to tell you about the structured 90-way plan on how you can clear it with the new changes coming in. So, Brian, could you help our audience understand this better? Could you walk them through the roadmap and the strategies that they can use to clear this in their very first attempt?
Yeah, absolutely. And just as you said, you really need to approach this with a plan. Good news, you're project managers, so this should be something you feel comfortable with. Um, so we want to think about how do we complete this successfully in 3 months. So we're going to break things down to month 1, month 2, month 3. First month is really getting the foundation, understanding what's in that PMBOK. We've said those 3 focus areas of the people, the process, and the business environment. So we're going to start really unpacking that, learning more about the PMP domains. You're going to hear terms like different phases, initiating and planning and executing, monitoring, controlling, closing. So you're going to get familiar with those. You're going to learn about these different um, process areas that you also want to be very familiar with. All of that is part of the foundation. And what I would encourage you to do, and this is something I've learned a little bit from when I first took the exam, because I was just like everyone here. There's so much to absorb. I didn't really know where to start. But one of the things when I look back and reflect on that, what I didn't do a very good job of is pulling back a little bit and looking at the big picture and really understand how all these things kind of relate to each other. I kind of dove deep into each one of the processes and kind of brute forced my way through by just learning a lot of the detail. But what I didn't do a very good job of is thinking how all of this connects together. So I'd really encourage you to kind of pull back there in the beginning part of the PMBOK. They've got some great illustrations that kind of show you a picture of how everything relates. So get comfortable and familiar with those to the point that you can almost sort of write them down if you needed to. And that's going to increase your confidence that your foundation is solid. So your first month is digging through the PMBOK, checking out projectmanagement.com, just learning as much as you can. Go to YouTube videos, get as much information as you can. Now, once you've got that foundation in place, month 2, all about practice and refine. Okay, start looking at topic-specific quizzes. Again, good training providers are going to offer those to you. Every single one of their educational segments should have some kind of quiz that helps validate that you captured the knowledge that was covered. Use that to focus you on some areas that you're going to be weaker on and make sure you strengthen those. Many people get very anxious about the fact that, yes, there is some math involved in this exam. I'm sorry to have to break it to you. The good news is most of the math is pretty fundamental. It's adding, it's subtracting, it might be some dividing, maybe some multiplying. So it's not going to be overly complex. But if that's something that makes you feel a little anxious, math anxiety is a thing, then spend some time there. Run through some examples, practice, practice, practice. So focus on those areas you're just not as strong as. We talked about things like creating peer study groups. In fact, somebody might be aware there's a new PMI certification in AI for project management. Well, guess what? Lots of interest in that particular topic. It's a brand new cert, just came out a few months ago. I don't have it. So I've been working with my colleagues, and we are going to pull together a little study group ourselves. And there's a group of about 10 of us. We're going to take that certification. We're going to work together. So look for opportunities to create those study groups and use that as a way to kind of practice and refine your skills. And then look for those practice scenarios. Again, when you look for a training provider, good training providers, which I'm happy to say SimplyLearn is one of them, provides really powerful case studies. And you can use those case studies to see situational, real world examples and how these techniques can help solve problems in those areas. So those are really, really valuable. And then finally, you are ready for the real deal. It's month 3. Now we're going to perfect what we've learned. We're going to take those full length mock exams, as I mentioned. At a minimum, I'd encourage you to use 4 as a threshold. So good training practice providers are going to give you at least 4 plus full-length mock exams. You need to time yourself so you can kind of understand how you're going to progress, kind of pace yourself in terms of answering questions. Develop some techniques. So if you've got some formulas you need to remember, well, memorize those, jot them down on a piece of paper as soon as the exam starts so you can easily reference them. You're not scrambling to look for them. And then when you feel confident, and my guidance would be, there's 2 different ways to approach this. One might be, let's pick that exam date. So I'm kind of really laser focused on that. Or I'll take a few of the practice exams, see where I stand. And after maybe 2 of these, if I'm feeling confident, then I'll book that date. But get that exam appointment established because that's going to hold yourself a little bit accountable, right? You've got that date, you've got to work towards that. And then just practice, practice and some more practice that will help you get through.
Thanks, Brian. I think that was a complete breakdown and a very structured way in which one can align their study goals over 3 months with 90 days to actually clear this exam. And like you mentioned, mocks are really important. Having the right feedback, study groups, and the support is something that is very crucial for clearing the PMP exam. And like you mentioned earlier, that is also where SimplyLearn can help you clear the exam. And also because you are a mentor with us, you have been a crucial part in creating the mock exams, the framing questions, and also guiding our learners through all these years. Could you also specify some of the advantages one may have if they join our course? What can they expect? How are they going to benefit out of this course?
Yeah, I think that's really important. And, the truth of the matter is, and by the way, although I've done a lot of work with SimplyLearn and lots of experience and exposure, I also have awareness of other training providers. So you do have options, but a few of the things I think makes SimplyLearn really stand out. And I can say there's a great deal of confidence. I think they offer the strongest curriculum for anyone interested in taking their PMP. The first is that they have been very, very careful in aligning everything they do with a PMI approved curriculum. So from day one, they've had a close relation with the PMI, really understanding what changes are occurring, how to really help position learners for success in taking exams. As mentioned, they will give you that 35 contact hours that you need to be eligible to take the exam. Hey, those are PDUs as well, so you get some credit for those. They've done a great job pulling together experts. I'd like to include myself in that category. So you get taught by people like me, but others just like me too. So they've got lots of rich experiences, backgrounds. What I find particularly interesting, just kind of go off script a little bit here. One of the things that's really powerful about the SimplyLearn framework is you can come in as part of a cohort, a group of people all taking the certification training at the same time. But if you have something that prevents you from taking one of the training sessions that are available for any number of reasons, or you need to do it on a weekend versus a day or evening, you have options to take that training and you can either watch the pre-recorded session that that instructor delivered if you kind of like that style that you've been getting, maintain it, or if you want to just change it up, see what another instructor is saying and see their different ways of teaching. I find that kind of refreshing, just kind of get a little different flavor here. So those options I think are really important, and that comes from large, credible training organizations that have been doing this a long time. They've got so much more depth that they can offer, particularly around those flexible schedules. I deal with this all the time. I mean, it's NFL football season here, so weekends for me are really kind of focus on making sure I can watch those games and follow my favorite team. So you might be something similar. So look for opportunities where, oh, I missed that Sunday, but I can take it up again the next week. There's other courses, it's pre-recorded. Those flexible schedules are really important. And that blended learning model, and what that really means is you really want to look for training providers that can provide access to those mentors, those experts, those coaches in addition to self-paced learning options, activities and things that you can do online, look for organizations that provide you, hey, we've got mobile offerings, we've got more computer-based offerings. Those are really helpful because, I don't know if anyone uses Duolingo here. I love Duolingo because it gives me a nice way to kind of pick up some skills while I'm just waiting in the grocery line, guys, waiting for one of my kids to finish an activity. SimplyLearn offers exactly the same thing. So you can kind of practice a little bit when you've got a lunch break or you've got some time available and you can do it on your phone. So I found that really compelling. And plus, they've done a great job, really from day one on the UI, the interface. It's really easy to navigate. It's just I think a really positive experience end to end. So I think there's some pretty compelling reasons to use SimplyLearn. There are other options out there. Make sure you compare them to what I think SimplyLearn's got available already. But the other part of this, I think you started the conversation with 8 million learners have already gone through this. It's pretty battle tested. I mean, they've been doing this a lot.
Yeah, thank you for saying all that, and also for adding on all the points that you mentioned as well. So those were really good points, and I have a few more points to add from my end. But before going on to that, I see a lot of questions regarding the PPT. If we will be sharing the recording, we will be sharing the slide deck and the recording with all of you. If you have missed out on the session, I see a few members who mentioned that you've joined later on. That's completely fine. We will be taking up your questions in the coming slides, and I'm sure Q&A is something that you're all waiting for. I can see your questions there. We will be diving into that as well. I'll just quickly take you through a few more slides and we will get to the Q&A section. Right. So adding on to what Bryan told you about what SimplyLearn offers, here are a few additional things. I'm just highlighting some of the things that could be of advantage to you if you are preparing for the exam. So first, I would like to highlight that the exam prep tools. So there are 12 full-length mock exams. So those are going to feel exactly like the PMP exam. And like Bryan mentioned, it's important to take at least 4 to 5 mocks before you give your PMP exam. Then you have chapter-wise quizzes. So it's going to make it easy to build that mastery on any topic that you may want to improve in. And we also have a detailed performance and analytics. So you don't really have to guess where you stand, right? That's something that is a challenge when it comes to self-learning. So it tells you which areas you need to focus on, and you also receive a lot of feedback from mentors, right? And like Bryan mentioned, we have real-world case studies and assignments that will help you understand how PMP concepts actually work, how to apply them in real life, and will be really helpful while you give the exam. And when it comes to support and resources section, you get a 24/7 learner support, which means that even if you're studying at night, even if you're stuck, we have a team that's going to answer all of your queries, and someone's always going to be there to help you as per your schedule and your timelines. And all of the live sessions, like we covered on the previous slide, are already recorded and available. So if you miss out on any of the days, if you have any other priorities and you miss out on a session, you're not going to fall behind. You will be able to catch up with the classes really soon. And we have downloadable guides, reference materials, and also active community forums. The peer groups that Bryan was just mentioning, we have that Slack community where you will be added. You will be talking to other people who are also enrolled for the program to discuss your ideas, thoughts, assignments, all of that. And finally, coming to the career advantage that you have, one thing that SimplyLearn will help you with is the resume and LinkedIn optimization, interview preparation, and also access to the community, like I mentioned. So, with all of this, we want to convey that we are not just helping you prepare or pass the exam. So you will be prepared to be a project management expert by the end of this program, and you will also have a wonderful network towards the end of it. So I'm not going to elaborate on this slide because I've already covered most of the points. So there's peer-to-peer engagement, flexi learn option that Bryan spoke about, mentoring sessions. So that is something we always highlight. We have the best mentors with us. These are all PMP certified trainers who are taking up your sessions, and the learning support is something that I've covered. So, like we mentioned, career support is an important aspect. So, once you complete the certification, how can you land a job? How can you get the next appraisal or move into a leadership role? So, for this, we provide interview prep and assessment apart from the group mentoring and networking opportunities. And I already covered AI powered profile optimization, that is quite relevant in today's time. So, our team will help you work on these aspects, and by the time you complete the certification, you will also be planning you'll be completely ready to get your next job, the next promotion that you're waiting for, right? And this is what the certificate of completion would look like once you complete the course with us. It's also in collaboration with PMI. So this is basically an overview of the certificate. And talking about the experience of our learners, like you can see on our screen, we've got really wonderful feedback from our learners, and they have also moved into better roles, got better promotion, and also landed their first jobs in project management space as well after completing the course with us. So when it comes to the next batch, our next batch is going to start on 29th of November, which is just 10 days away, and the course will get over by 11th of Jan. So that's also an opportunity for you to start your new year with a course completion with your PMP certification. So it's a wonderful opportunity. And like Bryan mentioned, it would be great to take up this exam before the changes come into place. So we thought that this is the right time to highlight that as well. And I see a few questions related to the program fees. So the program fee for Indian learners is rupees 10,999, and you have the option to pay this in installments. For global learners, the program fee is $699, and you can reach out to the team to understand the payment options better. And how do you do that? I'll quickly take you through that as well. The steps are very simple. If you're interested in this course, I'm going to launch a poll. Even if you have any kinds of questions regarding the course eligibility, fee, installment options, all of that, you can click on a yes, and our expert advisors will reach out to you at the earliest. Within 24 hours, they'll be reaching out to you and answering all of your queries. And once you talk to them, you'll have to submit your portfolio and your profile, and the shortlisted candidates will be eligible to start the course in the upcoming cohort itself. If this is not a convenient time for you, we have other cohorts as well. You can definitely go ahead and check with our learning advisors on that. So I'm going to quickly launch the poll. Um, okay, I hope you can see this on screen. So please go ahead and let us know your responses, and our team will reach out to you for the same. So as you give your responses, I will also move on to the Q&A session because we actually have a lot of questions to cover. So please go ahead, give us your responses, and I will pass on the questions to Bryan in the meantime. Okay, so Bryan, I think I'm going to start with a few questions. So one question I can see is, what is the additional fee cost in case you would have to retake the exam?
That's a great question. So a few things about that. One is I would really encourage you to go to the PMI.org site to get the most up-to-date information. Generally speaking, it's about, I believe, $275 if you are a PMI member, or about $375 if you are not. But of course, you might be in other countries where you've got different currencies and exchange rates, et cetera, could have a bearing on that. So my guidance would be always go to the PMI site to take a look at this. The other thing is again, coming back to the training provider you're working with, many of them will offer, like SimplyLearn, they'll say, hey, we'll include retakes if you're not successful, which puts a lot more emphasis on helping you get through the exam in the first pass. So check the website if you're interested in kind of getting that next level detail. But another approach is just to say, hey, let's be successful on our first attempt. You won't even have to worry about that.
Yeah, thank you for answering that question. I see a few questions regarding enrollments. If you've already enrolled for the PMP course, then you do not have to enroll again. Nivedita, I think I saw your question on the chat, and I think there's one more question from her side. So please guide us on how to apply for the exam. What are the prerequisites? How to choose the date for the exam? And how to access PMP course materials used in live sessions in PMI website.
Yeah, those are great questions. So, a couple things. So, when I am teaching this, I will carve some time out at the end of the training to walk everyone through the application process because you're exactly right. There are a lot of steps. The questions, might not be immediately familiar to everyone, so it does help to kind of have someone step you through and get comfortable with that. Generally speaking, this is kind of an application. So you're gonna say, hey, I have to show I've got 36 months of experience. You need to show what that experience is in. You're going to fill out a form that says, I did the following things. I think one of the questions I saw was, how I haven't been working directly in the project management domain. How do I ensure that my application kind of aligns with those expectations? And what I would encourage you to do is learn more about, this PMI framework and the terms. So, for example, you might be working in, a healthcare environment and they create a project initiation request, so PIR. It's really important to us. Now, in the language of the PMI, that would be a project charter. Okay, that's the standard word for those kind of initiation documents. So what you just have to do is do a little pivot and say, hey, in my job, I was involved in creating project charters, even though your company might call them project initiation requirements. So just get comfortable kind of maybe at times sort of mapping these terms to the PMI terms, using that language when you submit your application. My guidance would be when you are ready to take that next step and of applying for the exam, talk to your instructor. They have done it hundreds of times for people. I do it all the time. So just, if I'm your instructor, just reach out to me and say, Bryan, I'm about to submit this. Does this look okay? And you'll get lots of good feedback that way.
Thank you for that, Bryan. I think you have already answered a lot of questions in the Q&A session. So I think we've covered almost all of the questions here. And if you guys are interested to know more about the course that we are offering, we have also shared the link in the chat. You can go ahead and check it out over there. And there was a question regarding the batch starting this weekend. Yes, there is a batch starting this weekend, but I believe that the enrollments are closed for that, and the next upcoming batch is the next one on 29th. And there's one more question. I think this is the last question. Is the new PMP exam more oriented towards agile or predictive? What's the ideal balance while preparing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So don't lose sight of the fact that this whole project management domain focuses on all different industries and organizational types. So I work in oil and gas quite a bit. And if you want some really big projects, boy, build yourself an oil rig that's going to be, centered in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico for $1 billion. So those types of projects 100% rely on very traditional predictive practices. So you are absolutely going to see a lot of focus and emphasis on those types of questions in the exam. But obviously, we're seeing a lot of technologies that are emerging, and those leverage many of these agile practices. And in fact, many of these agile practices really emphasize people working together collaboratively. So whether you're working on a very traditional, construction style project or something that's a bit more adaptive, that people-centric approach is going to be something you can use in either domain. So my guidance is probably 50-50. I think you really have to have a solid grounding in the predictive stage gate driven approach that is sort of oriented around more traditional project management. but also familiar with some of these ideas that the Agile community has been bringing into the forefront, particularly with some of these more, technology-oriented project delivery practices. So probably 50-50 is what I would suggest. That's probably a safe bet. Yeah, and that's probably what I'd have to offer.
Thanks for that answer. And I hope that answered your question as well. So I have to end this poll right now in the interest of time. So in case anyone has missed out and would like to still enroll, you can go ahead and check our website for this. And now moving on to one of the most important parts of today's webinar. So we wanted to check with you, how confident are you all to get started in your learning journey now that you have attended this webinar with us? We would love to see your responses in the chat. So let us know that, and then I'll quickly move on to the certificates as well. So we hope all of you are feeling confident right now. But I would need to enroll next year. Yeah, so I see that a few of you are interested to enroll. Yeah, there are upcoming batches. If you cannot enroll immediately, you can still talk to the counselor and they'll guide you through that. So thank you for all of your responses. And now coming to the certificate of participation, I'm going to be launching a new poll again. So what you can do is go ahead and fill up your full name in the form. And once you fill up your full name, you will be receiving your certificates within 24 to 48 hours. So ensure that you specify, not in the chat. So every time we share this, I can see a lot of responses in the chat. Unfortunately, if you respond in the chat, we will not be able to send it out to you. So if you'll have to answer us in the poll. So while all of you are taking the time out to fill up the form, I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Bryan for being a wonderful speaker for today's webinar. Some great insights, great learnings, and a lot of tips. I truly enjoyed being a part of this webinar, learned a lot. That's something I do in almost all the webinars I attend. And I hope we were able to add a lot of value to all of you who joined us as well. So first, thank you, Bryan, for joining us. Thank you for being a wonderful speaker.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been a great session. And Swetha, I think you've done enough of these. You can get your PMP now. So expecting you
Yeah.
to add that to your LinkedIn profile soon. But this has been wonderful. I think the questions are great. For many of you that might still have questions, you're more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to provide whatever support I can. And yeah, I mean, if the only thing I would offer, if you've taken the course at this session to this point, you're still with us, take the next
Yes.
step. Get yourself locked in. I mean, this is going to be really important to you going forward. This will be an investment you can make in yourself, in your career. So just build on that momentum.
That's wonderful. Thanks for saying that, Bryan. And yes, I will be working on the PMP certification. So apart from that, what is one piece of advice that you would like to leave with all the audience that are still present with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like I said, you've gotten this far, take those next steps, get yourself enrolled and invest in yourself. One of the things I know look, the reality is there's a lot of uncertainty in the world around us today, right? We've got AI going on, the world seems like a complex place. Investing in yourself is the best way to future-proof yourself from those kind of changes. So, really encourage you to continue to look for ways to grow, to develop. These certifications not only are going to give you a great set of skills you can draw upon later, now in the next year to the next 10 years, but also create some community. Expand that network, connect with other people with similar interests, and if you do that, then really any changes you see going forward, you'll be well positioned to manage.
That's great advice. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure it's helpful to everyone over here. And with that, I'm going to quickly end the poll. If you guys are not able to fill up the poll, if you face any issues, you can mail us at webinars@simplylearn.net. So we will add your names and send you the certificates as well. And with that, I would also love to thank the audience, all of you, for staying back, for being a wonderful, engaged audience for today's webinar. And I loved hosting all of you guys. And I really look forward to seeing you all in the upcoming webinars as well. If you have anything specific you're looking forward to having, like a webinar topic, you can again mail us and we will surely consider your opinion. It's very important for us. So thank you all and wish you all a wonderful day or evening ahead. And see you all really soon.